The morning of the first challenge dawned with all three suns of the Zephyrian system visible in the pale sky. The palace's main courtyard had been transformed into an arena, with viewing platforms erected for the hundreds of dignitaries who had come to witness the unprecedented contest. Marcus arrived exactly on time, wearing simple combat fatigues instead of his diplomatic robes. Princess Zara Lynn was already present, resplendent in ceremonial armor that caught and reflected the morning light. She looked confident, even eager, as she surveyed the tactical simulation equipment that had been set up. Emperor Vexhai presided over the proceedings from an elevated platform, flanked by his military advisors and the various alien ambassadors. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a blade. "The first challenge begins now," the Emperor announced. "Princess Zara Lynn will attempt her simulation first." The tactical simulator was an impressive piece of technology, a holographic projection system that could recreate any battle scenario with perfect accuracy. The princess stepped into the central control circle and activated the display. The air above the courtyard filled with a three-dimensional battlefield, showing fleets of ships, planetary defenses, and complex tactical formations. The scenario was one Marcus recognized from the diplomatic briefings, a historical recreation of the Korthax invasion of the Helix Nebula. Princess Zara Lynn would be playing the role of the invading fleet commander, trying to conquer a heavily defended system with minimal losses. For the next hour, the assembled crowd watched in silence as the princess maneuvered her forces with brilliant precision. She coordinated multi-pronged attacks, exploited weaknesses in the defenders' formations, and adapted quickly to unexpected resistance. Her tactical genius was undeniable, and by the end of the simulation, she had achieved total victory with losses of only 8% of her forces. The crowd erupted in applause. It was a masterful performance, one that would be difficult for any opponent to match, let alone surpass. "Impressive," Marcus said quietly as the princess stepped out of the simulation circle. "Your reputation is well-deserved, Your Highness." The princess's skin showed a faint silver glow, satisfaction among her people. "Your turn, human. Try not to embarrass yourself too badly." Marcus walked into the simulation circle and examined the controls. The interface was designed for beings with 4 arms and different visual perception than humans. He spent several minutes adjusting the settings and familiarizing himself with the systems while the crowd grew restless. "Is there a problem, Ambassador?" the Emperor called down. "No problem, Your Majesty," Marcus replied. "Just making sure I understand the rules correctly. I'm allowed to choose my own scenario, correct?" Princess Zara Lynn frowned. "Of course. The challenge is tactical excellence, not memorization." "Thank you for clarifying." Marcus's fingers moved across the control interface, and the holographic display shifted to show a completely different battle scenario. A murmur of surprise rippled through the crowd. Instead of a grand space battle with fleets and planets, Marcus had chosen something much smaller in scale. The display showed a single city surrounded by mountainous terrain, with a small force trapped inside, facing a much larger army outside. "What is this?" Princess Zara Lynn demanded. "The Siege of Stalingrad," Marcus replied calmly. "World War II, Earth 1942, a human military engagement." "That's hardly fair," the princess protested. "I don't know anything about primitive human warfare." "Neither did I know anything about Korthax invasion tactics," Marcus pointed out. "But I watched you complete that scenario anyway. I assumed the challenge was about tactical ability, not prior knowledge." Emperor Vexhai considered this. "He has a point, daughter. The human is correct that the challenge should test ability rather than memory." The princess's skin shifted to an angry purple, but she couldn't argue with the logic. "Fine, but don't expect any sympathy when you fail." Marcus activated the simulation, and the battle began. The scenario he had chosen was one of the most desperate defensive actions in human history. A surrounded city facing an enemy with superior numbers, better equipment, and control of the supply lines. By any logical analysis, the defenders should have been completely overwhelmed within days. But Marcus didn't fight the battle the way it had actually happened. Instead, he applied everything he had learned about Zephyrian military doctrine from watching the princess's performance, combined with human tactical innovations that no alien had ever seen before. He started by doing something that confused every military expert in the audience. He began systematically destroying parts of his own city. Buildings that could provide cover for attackers were demolished. Streets that offered clear lines of advance were blocked with rubble. Within hours, the urban environment had been transformed into a maze of choke points and kill zones. "What is he doing?" someone in the crowd whispered loudly. "He's weakening his own defenses." But Ambassador Kethavar was watching with growing understanding. "No," he rumbled. "He's changing the battlefield to favor his strengths instead of fighting on terrain that favors his enemy." As the simulation progressed, Marcus's innovations became more apparent. He used small, mobile units to harass supply lines while larger forces remained hidden in the urban maze he had created. When enemy forces tried to advance, they found themselves trapped in narrow passages under crossfire from multiple directions. Most importantly, Marcus did something that no conventional military commander would consider. He began broadcasting propaganda to the enemy forces, not through official channels, but by having his troops write messages on walls, leave graffiti in abandoned buildings, and even rig speakers to play music from the besieged city. "What purpose does this serve?" Princess Zara Lynn asked, her confusion evident. "Psychological warfare," Marcus replied without taking his eyes off the display. "The enemy soldiers can see that despite the siege, despite being outnumbered, the defenders still have hope. Still have music, still have spirit. That kind of thing eats at morale more effectively than any weapon." By the end of the simulation, something unprecedented had happened. Instead of the defenders being overwhelmed, the attacking forces had begun to withdraw. The constant harassment, the difficult urban terrain, and the psychological pressure had convinced the enemy commanders that the city wasn't worth the cost of taking it. Marcus had achieved not just victory, but victory with zero casualties among his defenders. The silence that followed was absolute. Every alien in the courtyard was trying to process what they had just witnessed. The princess stared at the holographic display as if it had personally betrayed her. "That's impossible," she said finally. "You can't win a siege by not fighting." "Can't you?" Marcus asked mildly. "It seems to have worked." Emperor Vex-High's voice cut through the stunned silence. "The first challenge goes to Ambassador Chen. Prepare for the second challenge." The hunting preserve was located several miles from the palace, a vast wilderness area where the royal family pursued various dangerous creatures for sport. The shadow beasts lived in the deepest part of the preserve, in caves that wound through the mountainous terrain like an underground labyrinth. The creatures were massive, easily 12 feet long, with claws that could slice through armor and speed that made them nearly invisible when they moved. They hunted by detecting vibrations through the ground and were intelligent enough to use pack tactics against prey. Princess Zara Lynn entered her assigned section of the preserve with confidence, carrying the traditional weapons of her people, twin curved blades designed for her four-armed fighting style. She moved through the forest with predatory grace, every sense alert for signs of her quarry. Marcus, meanwhile, had spent an hour before entering his section doing something that confused the observers monitoring the challenge. Instead of checking his weapons or reviewing combat techniques, he had been gathering materials from around the preserve's entrance: vines, rocks, fallen branches, and various other seemingly useless items. "What is the human doing?" one of the monitoring technicians asked. "I have no idea," another replied. He's acting like he's going on a nature hike instead of hunting one of the most dangerous predators on the planet. When Marcus finally entered his section of the preserve, he was carrying a makeshift pack filled with his gathered materials. His only weapons were a simple knife and what appeared to be a slingshot, items that would be useless against a shadow beast's armored hide. The princess found her beast first. She tracked it to a narrow canyon where it had been lying in wait for unwary prey. The battle that followed was a display of martial prowess that would have impressed warriors from any species. The princess used her natural advantages, speed, strength, and superior weapons, to engage the creature in direct combat. The fight was brutal and brief. The shadow beast was fast and cunning, but the princess was faster and more cunning. Her blades found vital spots with surgical precision, and within minutes the creature lay dead at her feet. She had completed the challenge in exactly 14 minutes. Marcus, meanwhile, had spent his first hour in the preserve setting traps. Not the sophisticated technological snares that most species would use, but simple, primitive devices made from vines, rocks, and branches. He created pitfalls covered with loose foliage, deadfall traps triggered by tripwires, and even a complex pulley system that could drop a heavy stone from above. When he finally located his shadow beast, he didn't engage it in combat at all. Instead, he began making noise, deliberately letting the creature know where he was while staying just out of reach. He led it on a chase through the forest, always staying just ahead of its claws, guiding it along a specific path. The beast, frustrated by its inability to catch this strange, slow prey, became increasingly aggressive in its pursuit. It didn't notice the carefully placed traps until it was too late. The first pitfall slowed it down. The second deadfall trap injured one of its legs. By the time it reached the third trap, the complex pulley system, it was moving more carefully, but it was also angry and focused entirely on its prey. When the massive stone fell from above, the shadow beast was directly beneath it. The creature died instantly, crushed by a trap that had required no advanced technology, no superior strength, and no direct confrontation. Marcus's time: 11 minutes. "Impossible!" Princess Zaralyn breathed when the results were announced. "He cheated! He didn't even fight the beast!" "The challenge was to kill a shadow beast as quickly as possible," Marcus replied calmly. "Nothing in the rules specified that it had to be done through direct combat." "But that's not how it's done," the princess protested. "No one hunts shadow beasts with primitive traps." "No one among your people," Marcus corrected. "But humans have been hunting dangerous predators for hundreds of thousands of years. We learned early that the best way to kill something bigger and stronger than you is to make it kill itself." The final challenge took place the next morning in the palace's military training grounds. Both competitors were given command of a squad of 10 palace guards each and assigned the same mission: infiltrate a fortified position, retrieve a specific target, and return with minimal casualties. The fortified position was a mock enemy base constructed in the training grounds, complete with automated defenses, guard patrols, and sophisticated detection systems. The target was a small data crystal located in the center of the facility. Princess Zaralyn went first, leading her squad with the confidence of someone who had trained for exactly this type of mission her entire life. She used classic military tactics: careful reconnaissance, coordinated assault on weak points, and overwhelming force at the critical moment. Her guards followed her orders without question, moving with the precision of a well-oiled machine. The mission was a complete success. The princess retrieved the data crystal and returned with her entire squad intact. It was a textbook example of military leadership, executed flawlessly by someone who had been born to command. Marcus's approach was entirely different. Instead of leading his squad directly into the training area, he spent the first hour talking with them. Not about tactics or strategy, but about themselves, their families, their interests, their concerns about the upcoming mission. To the observers, it looked like a waste of valuable time. "What is he doing?" Princess Zara Lynn demanded. "This is supposed to be a leadership challenge, not a social gathering." "He's getting to know his troops," Ambassador Kethvar observed. "That's unusual." When Marcus finally began the mission, his squad moved differently than any military unit the aliens had ever seen. Instead of maintaining strict formation and following predetermined tactical doctrine, they moved with a fluid adaptability that seemed almost casual. When they reached the enemy base, Marcus did something that stunned every military expert watching. He walked up to the front gate and surrendered. "I am Ambassador Marcus Chen of Earth," he announced to the automated guards. "I'm here to negotiate for the release of the data crystal you're holding." The training scenario wasn't designed to handle diplomatic solutions. The automated systems were programmed to respond to military threats, not peaceful negotiations. While they tried to process this unexpected input, Marcus's squad used the confusion to slip into the base through service entrances that no one had thought to guard against people who weren't trying to fight their way in. By the time the base's security systems realized what was happening, Marcus's troops had already retrieved the crystal and were walking back out the front gate. Total mission time, 18 minutes. Casualties, none. But more importantly, Marcus's squad was smiling. Despite having just completed a dangerous mission, they looked relaxed and confident, as if they had been on a training exercise rather than facing potential death. "How did you do that?" Princess Zara Lynn demanded when the results were announced. "That's not a military tactic." "Isn't it?" Marcus asked. "Sun Tzu, one of our greatest military philosophers, wrote that the supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Why use force when intelligence and creativity can achieve the same result?" The princess's skin had gone completely white, a sign of shock among her people. She had lost all 3 challenges to a member of a species she had dismissed as primitive and weak. Emperor Vexhai stood slowly, his 4 arms moving in a gesture of formal recognition. "The contest is complete. Ambassador Chen has proven his worth according to the terms agreed upon." The princess looked around the courtyard at all the assembled aliens who had witnessed her defeat. Her humiliation was complete, but to her credit, she kept her composure. I acknowledge the humans' victory," she said formally. "The medical supplies will be provided as agreed." Marcus walked over to where she stood and offered his hand in the human gesture of respect. After a moment's hesitation, she took it. "Your Highness," he said quietly, "you fought well in all 3 challenges. The only difference between us is that you were taught to win through superior force, while my people learned to win by changing the rules of the game." "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why didn't you humiliate me completely? You could have demanded anything." Marcus's smile returned, warm and genuine as it had been on that first day. "Because the goal was never to defeat you, Your Highness. The goal was to show you that humans might be worth taking seriously. That maybe, despite our small size and primitive technology, we might have something valuable to contribute to the galaxy." The princess stared at him for a long moment. "And the apology? You could demand that I apologize publicly for questioning humanity's worthiness." "I think," Marcus said gently, "that your people saw everything they needed to see. Sometimes actions speak louder than words." Later that evening, as the medical supplies were being loaded onto Marcus's ship, Ambassador Kethvar approached him one final time. "I've been thinking about our conversation," the massive alien said, "about human military history. I think I understand now why your species survived long enough to reach the stars." "Oh," Marcus asked. "Every other species in the galaxy achieved spaceflight by conquering their homeworlds through superior technology or overwhelming force," Kethvar explained. "But humans had to survive on a planet where everything was trying to kill them, while competing against other humans who were just as clever and adaptable as they were. You didn't develop advanced weapons or stronger bodies, you developed better brains. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. We learned that in a universe full of bigger, stronger, faster species. The only reliable advantage is the ability to think your way around problems instead of through them. And that, Kethvar said with something that might have been respect, is why I suspect the galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. As Marcus's ship prepared to depart, carrying the medical supplies that would save millions of human lives, Princess Zaralyn watched from her private chambers. She was still trying to process everything that had happened, still trying to understand how she had been so thoroughly outmaneuvered by someone she had dismissed as inferior. A soft chime indicated an incoming message. She activated the communication system and was surprised to see Marcus's face appear on the screen. "Your Highness," he said with that same warm smile, "I wanted to thank you personally for the medical supplies and for the lesson." "What lesson?" she asked. "You taught me that sometimes the most important victory isn't proving you're stronger than your opponent," Marcus replied. "Sometimes it's proving that your opponent is stronger than they thought they were." Before she could respond, the connection ended. Through her window, she watched the human ship disappear into the star-filled darkness, carrying with it the medicine that would save countless lives. For the first time in her 19 years, Princess Zaralyn found herself wondering what it would be like to have a real challenge in her life. To face opponents who couldn't be defeated through superior strength or royal privilege. To discover what she might be capable of when forced to rely on nothing but her own intelligence and creativity. And for the first time since meeting the human ambassador, she smiled, not with arrogance or superiority, but with genuine anticipation. The galaxy had just become a much more interesting place indeed.